Hello everyone! U.S. Navy SEAL John Kelly has given many years of his life to serving his country. After another successful mission, John decides to retire and spend the rest of his life with his wife Pam, who is heavily pregnant. In a shocking turn of events, his former colleagues and he are assaulted, and the attacks result in the untimely deaths of Pam and their unborn child. Obsessed with revenge, John declares war on an organized Russian crime group, unaware that the true enemy is much closer. Aleppo, Syria. A squad of SEALs, led by Lieutenant Commander Karen Greer, is sent to rescue a CIA agent held captive by the Syrian military. After discussing the plan of action, the team sets out on the mission. They assault the paramilitary base and find the hostage, but examination of the murdered kidnappers reveals that they are former Russian military, not Syrians. The CIA agent Ritter, who led the special mission, dismisses the suspicions and orders the SEALs to leave, but they encounter an enemy with a rocket launcher blocking their path. Ignoring the injured soldiers, Ritter urges the team to keep going and safely evacuate the rescued hostage. However, the soldiers rush to help their injured comrades and discover that Ritter lied to them. They are not at a paramilitary base, but at a Russian armory. The team escapes the trap, and the surviving soldiers, along with Ritter and the rescued hostage, are taken away by helicopter. Petty Officer Kelly confronts the CIA agent, exposing him as a liar, but Commander Greer orders him to stop. As the helicopter rises into the air, Ritter orders an airstrike on the armory, and his order is immediately carried out. 3 months later, John Kelly is in Washington, D.C. at a party at his friend's house with his wife Pam, who is in her last month of pregnancy. He retired from the military and intends to pursue a career in private security. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, another former colleague of Kelly is enjoying civilian life. The proud father of 2 casually takes out the trash one ordinary weekday, only to be intentionally hit by a minivan. Later that same day, as John and Pam head back to their home, another SEAL team member is shot during a rush hour on a bustling city street in Atlanta, Georgia. John and his wife go to bed. John leaves Pam in the bedroom not to disturb her sleep and goes down to the living room on the first floor to listen to music with headphones. He doesn't notice the intruders surrounding his house and cutting off the power. John discovers the issue when his laptop screen goes black and heads to the switch box. He realizes that there are intruders in the house. Grabbing a gun and a flashlight from a secret stash, John goes up to the second floor, where the mercenaries have already killed his sleeping, pregnant wife. John manages to sneak up on them from behind and shoot several attackers, but he also gets shot by one of them. In the light of a fallen flashlight, he sees a wounded Russian mercenary who manages to escape. Gathering his last strength to sneak into the bedroom, John finds his wife Pam dead. The military and the CIA hold an emergency meeting to discuss the attacks on the SEALs. It's led by Agent Robert Ritter, who believes that the soldiers may have been involved in illegal activities.
We have to be alert to the fact that these SEALs get themselves into all worlds of trouble: drugs, arms, information.
After the meeting, Commander Greer confronts Ritter for making false accusations, but the man coldly stops her, stating that the CIA is looking into it. Karen comes to visit John in the hospital. She regretfully informs him that his unborn child did not survive either, and the identity of his attackers is not yet known. Infuriated, John tells Greer that the assailants were clearly professionals and that one of them managed to escape. That same day, Karen is visited by Secretary of Defense Clay. He shows up to ask her if John Kelly can be fully trusted. John, meanwhile, begins a difficult recovery after being wounded. After a while, the secretary calls Greer in for a meeting. Agent Ritter, who is visibly nervous upon seeing Karen, is also present, but is still forced to report the details of the investigation. He shows the files of former Russian military men and explains that the murders were a planned attack by the foreigners. The attentive Greer notices that the file of another mercenary who escaped is missing, but Ritter dodges her question.
We're a man short. Kelly said one of the Russians got away. There's 3 men here. Where's the 4th?
It doesn't matter.
Ritter then says that the CIA director intends to close the case. Stunned, Clay and Greer have to go along with this decision for now. Without delay, Greer informs Kelly that the CIA has no intention of continuing the investigation into the murders. However, at the risk of losing her job, she gives John the files of the murdered Russians and a former FSB agent Vasiliev, who issued passports to the mercenaries. But it is impossible to get close to him. John returns to his house, turned upside down by the investigators who collected the evidence from the crime scene. John feels utterly powerless to do anything to the men who ruined his life. He takes the gun and cash from his stash and decides to conduct his own investigation. Pretending to be drunk, John shows up at the Russian embassy, distracting the guards with his brazen behavior. He memorizes the license plate numbers of the parked vehicles, which Vasiliev and his bodyguards are getting into. John discreetly tails the car convoy en route to the airport, while simultaneously alerting the emergency services about the armed criminals and telling them the license plate number of the SUV with Vasiliev's bodyguards. Soon he notices the police stopping the car at the airport entrance, leaving Vasiliev vulnerable and exposed. Kelly crashes into the villain's car, blocks the doors, and douses the car with gasoline from a canister. He sets fire to the car, gets inside, and forces Vasiliev to reveal the name of the fourth mercenary. He then ruthlessly kills the former agent and voluntarily surrenders to the police after getting out of the car. The incident at the airport gets wide media coverage. The Russian government is believed to be involved in the attack on the SEALs. The news is watched by Secretary Clay and Agent Ritter. They know the information in the report is true, but have tried to cover it up. They understand that John is now a prime target for the Russians. However, Clay notes that Kelly had the courage to do something the U.S. intelligence agencies wouldn't. At this time, Commander Greer visits Kelly in prison. John urges her to tell Clay that he must be rescued from the prison, which is full of gangsters from the Russian mob, and he, in turn, will share the information he learned from Vasiliev. When John gets back to his cell, the warden orders him to stand face to the wall, but John refuses to comply with this demand. Realizing that his life is in danger, he promptly prepares to defend himself. Suddenly, a team of armed guards burst into his cell, but Kelly manages to overpower them using only his bare hands and takes one of them hostage. A marshal is assigned to deliver a phone to the rebellious inmate in his cell. Over the phone, Greer tells John that they are going to get him out of jail and he can trust the marshal and leave with him. Straight from the prison cell, Kelly is brought to a military base, where Greer meets him and holds a meeting with the Secretary of Defense, the CIA director, and Agent Ritter. Clay immediately demands the promised information, to which John reveals the name of the fourth Russian mercenary, Viktor Rykov. However, it turns out that the American intelligence services are convinced that Rykov, who was a secret agent, is dead. Ritter tells John that Viktor was born in Tumen and moved to the United States at an early age, where he began working for the Russian Special Forces. John correctly recognizes Rykov in the photo, and the secretary decides to assemble a team under Commander Greer to catch the criminal. Petty Officer Kelly will join them, but when the mission is over, he'll get back to prison. The team takes a civilian plane to the Russian city of Murmansk. Near their destination over the Barents Sea, the SEALs prepare to jump, but find out that the plane is already being pursued by the Russian Air Forces, which threaten to shoot it down if it does not land at the Murmansk airport. However, without giving them a chance to land, the Russian jets attack the plane and destroy one of the turbines with a missile. The pilot has to make an emergency landing on the water, and the team evacuates from the sinking plane. They manage to salvage a boat, and the SEALs swim towards the shore. The team takes refuge in the harbor and plans to proceed with their mission, even though they are now presumed officially dead. However, Kelly suspects they weren't spotted by accident. He thinks Ritter is a traitor, believing that he intentionally orchestrated the deadly flight after declining to fly with them. Shortly after, the Navy SEALs discover Ritter, who appears unfazed by the news of the plane crash. There are unfamiliar people and a suitcase full of money in the hangar where he hides. Kelly, filled with anger, demands an explanation from the traitor, but Ritter calmly explains that he continued the mission to get Rykov and paid the mercenaries, believing that the entire team had died in the crash. John has to believe the agent, and the team continues the mission with him. They swiftly locate the target and establish a surveillance post to monitor Viktor. When night falls, they attempt to capture him. However, John, consumed by his thirst for vengeance over the loss of his wife and child, blocks the team's path and insists on pursuing the target alone. Much to his surprise, Viktor is waiting for him, ready to reveal some unexpected information.
Do you know I'm in the CIA, John? Did they tell you that?
Viktor has a bomb and declares that the purpose of the mission is for Viktor and John to sacrifice their lives for America. He then fearlessly detonates the device. It turns out that Rykov acted as bait for the SEALs, and after the explosion, the group is attacked by snipers from hiding. The approaching Russian policemen also come under fire, and the blame for their deaths may fall on the US military. Kelly realizes that all the events that began with the SEAL assassinations are a planned operation to start a war, and the SEALs are doomed. Despite this, the team decides to escape and, through their coordinated work, they manage to get out of the trap. The unit returns to the hangar at the port, where a ship is already waiting for them. Setting sail from shore under the Russian flag, the soldiers discuss what happened and what they are going to do next. Kelly realizes that Rykov was just a pawn in this game, as were they, and that as soon as he gets back to Washington, he will have to go back to prison. Unexpectedly, Ritter declares that there is a duffel bag full of money hidden below deck that John can take and escape, and the agent will provide him with a cover-up story.
But you never made it out alive. You died in Murmansk.
Ritter thinks that if John continues to act as a ghost, they can figure out who's behind it all. Kelly admits he was wrong to think the CIA agent was a traitor. Meanwhile, at a restaurant in Washington, D.C., Secretary of Defense Clay listens as the TV newscaster reports on the terrorist attacks by Russia and America, and declares that the tensions between the nations are rising. Clay calmly heads to the restroom, where he sees John, presumed dead. John informs him that he knows the true purpose of the mission in which the SEALs were supposed to die. He reveals that the operation, aimed at heating up tensions with Russia, was staged by the CIA. Pretending to blame the CIA director for what happened, Kelly manages to catch Clay in a lie, and he knocks out the real mastermind behind the plot. John ties the Secretary of Defense up and forces him into a car. As they drive, John tries to get the truth from Clay about why he decided to kill his family, his team, and Viktor Rykov. He also reveals that Clay's own family is being held hostage, and they will get hurt if the secretary doesn't come clean. Reluctantly, the secretary starts talking. He justifies his actions by saying that the nation's in turmoil, with half the country fighting the other half, and they need a common external enemy to unite once again. After hearing the shocking revelations, Kelly abruptly swerves off the highway, aiming to sink the car in the nearby river. With the secretary facing imminent death, Kelly forces him to say the name of his dead wife. Accomplishing his goal, Kelly calmly watches as Clay drowns, remaining by his side until the end. Soon John is buried in the cemetery next to his wife's grave. They give him a proper military send-off, and the American flag from his coffin is handed to Commander Greer. After the burial, Karen heads to her van and hears a report on the radio that Secretary of Defense Thomas Clay died a week ago, and that the cause of his death is classified, but probably related to treason. John, who has been covertly observing his own funeral from the back of the van, also hears this. Karen sees John off at the train station, knowing that he is about to start a new chapter in his life with a new identity, all thanks to the efforts of CIA agent Robert Ritter. As always, check out the name of the movie in the video description. And in the meantime, tell us at what point you realized that Ritter wasn't a traitor. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to see even more cool recaps.